If I was dead, I would want my wife to do what Claire told Cliff to do in the Cosby Show. Hang a poster-sized picture of me over her damn bed, so any nigga who even thought about it would have to look me in my eyes. This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Season 16, Resurrection. And this is the introduction. When Season 15 ended, LJ had been shot, trying to save Miss Bernie. She'd gone off script during a plan to thwart the efforts of the International Trafficking Organization. They'd enlisted the services of a mercenary team out of Texas, a team full of ex-military serving as hired guns. They'd concocted multiple plans, executed them, and failed miserably. And just when they thought they had a plan that would stick, Miss Bernie did what they couldn't have possibly expected. She uncovered her shame, collaborated with Angela, the Queen Mother, and LJ, and agreed to deliver Angela accused 2-year-old daughter Isla to the mercenary who had victimized her. That mercenary had no clue that Miss Bernie wasn't going. Instead of baby Isla, she was showing up with a baby reborn that looked just like her. And despite LJ's best efforts, Miss Bernie was hell-bent on not only thwarting their efforts, but getting revenge of her own. In the end, she got it. And as ill-advised as her plan was, it worked. At that same time, a criminal organization out of Miami had also been enlisted by the International Trafficking Organization to kidnap Sincere's siblings. They were under the impression that he only had 2 twins, Simone and Chantal. No one outside of the 5 families had any clue that Nigel had 5 illegitimate children, not 3. So Nigel's widow, Catherine, did what she did best. She devised a plan that resulted in Star pretending to be Chantal, while Chantal was in Texas, assisting the grandmother crew with caring for the children on a daily basis. Mom Joyce, Regina's mother. Mom Brenda, Angela's mother-in-law from her first marriage. Mrs. Ali, Wise's mother, and Miss Bernie, who was now deceased, were running an in-home daycare of sorts, keeping Q and Angela's 2-year-old twins, Quincy V, also known as V, and Isla, Ron and Anya's 1.5-year-old son, RJ, and Regina and LJ's 4-year-old son, Anders. Mrs. Ali and Chantal had been added to the payroll because the older children had to be homeschooled thanks to all of the mayhem going on. That includes Q and Angela's 15-year-old son, Michael, 15-year-old daughter, Melissa, who are not biologically related. Go back a few seasons. And 9-year-old son, Angel, LJ and Regina's 11-year-old son, L3, and their 8-year-old daughter, Angelina, also known as Lena. And Donovan and Maribel's ghetto twins, the 7-year-olds, Chance and Bella. Soon enough, they'd also have Q and Angela's identical twin boys, Denver and Dallas, aptly named after Denver, the city where love found them, and Dallas, the city where they found love. Wise and Selima's newborn daughter, Alana. Donovan's newborn son that he had with Portia. And that's why I said they were running a mini in-home daycare. The plan that Catherine concocted included a second covert operative. She was using the code name Christine. And if you watched the short story, The Perfect Storm, then you know for sure now, just like Natalia, that covert operative was in fact Courtney Jiminez, Big Nate and Miss Eugenia's oldest daughter, and Natalia's older sister. If you thought that Courtney was Tori, I'm sorry to disappoint you. And if you pissed off that Tori and Natalia were one and the same, imagine how Saint and Sincere felt. Because Star did her big one. Sincere laid down the perfect play, and Saint went in his finisher bag, single-handedly taking out 12 goons in an effort to ensure that his brother and both of his sisters made it out of Operation Trifecta unscathed. And when it was all said and done, Saint walked away. He went to the people he felt safest with, and the place where he felt safest. And while he licked his wounds, the 2 people who loved him most and loved him best schemed behind his back. Summer, his best friend since childhood, and her grandmother, Miss Miracle, welcomed him into their home with open arms. And when they got to his favorite spot, a watchtower where he liked to look down on the Everglades, Summer exposed Saint's underbelly. She'd also colluded with his baby sister, and Star pulled up. If she had a favorite brother, it was definitely Saint. But it wasn't even about that. In the watchtower, she looked at her brother and said, "This reminds me of one of them dang on Bible stories. It was a king, and he was responsible for refereeing people's beef in the community. It was 2 ladies. One of them, her baby had died, and the other one, her baby had lived. The one who baby died had the audacity to steal the other lady's baby. And when the king dude suggested that they just split the baby in half and each one take a half, the lady who baby it was like, nah, G, we ain't doing that. She could have it." And that's how the king knew who baby it was. You a genius. Saint said, this ain't a game, Star, and it's damn sure not no Bible story. Star said, I know, but you real altruistic, and I absolutely hate that for you. How long you gonna keep doing this? Saint said, I'm not fighting with my brother. I'm not fighting with no man over no woman. If she choosing, she can choose him. I'd rather make it easier for her. I'd rather make it easier for everybody involved. Star said, so let me get this straight. If a nigga ran down on your girl, Saint said, I'd pop his head off like a cork. Star said, right. So why? Saint said, Star. Star said, I'm not suggesting that you and Sincere fight, but like I said earlier, if y'all gonna fight, let me know so I can pop some popcorn. What I'm suggesting, though, is that you stand up, nigga. You wrote me a damn letter talking about find a man who loves me enough to choose what's best for me, even if that means he gotta walk away. I know damn well you not telling me you think Sincere is what's best for Natalia. Saint said, what's best for Natalia is not to have Sincere turn her whole world upside down, trying to prove that he a better man than me. It ain't never been about getting a girl. Star said, I know that. Everything our brother has ever had in this life, you let him have it. Even Kingpin. You don't think I know that? And Saint was stumped. He had never told a single solitary soul that when his father first approached him and told him that he was in the life, that he was the kingpin of the St. James organization, he did not ask him to be a finisher. He offered him his seat at the table, and Saint turned it down. He told his father that that was a position for his oldest son, that he preferred playing the background, that he'd rather be in a role that would allow him to keep his brother safe without being responsible for his safety. And while Nigel did not like being told no, he'd always respected the fact that Saint always deferred to his older brother. He always honored him. He was always committed to family first, and anything that could possibly cause dissension in the ranks, Saint always avoided. Saint even went as far as to ask his father not to tell anybody that he'd offered him that seat, because he knew that Sincere's ego couldn't handle being second choice. So when Star let the cat out of the bag, Saint said, I will always do what's best for my family. I'll even help my brother be the kind of man she deserves if he's serious. I believe in him, despite everything he's done, because I know how hard he's worked, not just to earn his seat at this table, but to be the kind of man she would choose. I'd rather break my own heart than to do anything to hurt any of y'all. And Star wiped a tear from her eyes, because before she left the St. James estate, she'd ripped Sincere to shreds. She hadn't seen the side of Sincere that had actually been putting in the work. She knew something was different when he'd volunteered to stay at the safe house and help her support Simone, who'd been heavily drugged while she was in the clutches of the criminal organization that had kidnapped her. And she was desperately in need of rehab, but she needed to stay at the safe house overnight. Star had expected that she and Saint would be the ones supporting her triplet. So she was flabbergasted when Sincere volunteered and insisted that Saint leave. Star asked, so Sincere wasn't just showboating when he volunteered to stay at the safe house with me and Simone? Saint said, nah. When he took me to the side, he told me that he would take care of her and I should go back to the house and take care of me. Star said, what attitude? I can't even. And Summer wrapped her arms around Star. She was like a little sister to her too. She said, baby girl, nobody is the sum of their parts because each part is always and constantly under construction. You're almost 20 years old and you're not the little girl that I met more than a decade ago. If you growing and changing, so is Sincere. Then she looked at Saint and said, but that don't change the fact that you don't have to give up everything so that your brother can have what he wants. When Star pulled herself together, she said, speaking of which, you gonna have to face Natalia. And then Natalia walked in. Saint just shook his head. Star said, well, I gotta go walk my pet fish. Talk to y'all later. Natalia said, why would you have me come up here if he's with another woman? I just did this with your other brother back at your family's estate. Star said, what? That's not a woman, that's Summer. Summer said, I beg your pardon. Star said, you know what I mean. Saint said, shorty, listen, whatever we had, don't worry about that. Decide what you want to do with my brother. And Star said, well, I guess walking my pet alligator can wait. Summer said, I thought it was a fish. Star said, you know what I mean. Saint, shut the hell up. Natalia, stop making assumptions. If y'all gonna work this out, it's some things you need to know about my brother. He's selfless, loving, and he don't play about his family. But more importantly, he hates assumptions. Instead of assuming that he got something going on with Summer, ask a question. I don't care if y'all fall in love, get married, have kids, and spend the rest of your lives together. If you think you know him, still ask questions. See, normal people like for you to figure them out. Hell, we like for you to read our minds and anticipate our needs. But not this one right here. If he ain't told you, you don't know. And if you ask, he will definitely tell you. So skip whatever you think you know and ask questions. Now I'm gonna go walk my pet platypus and bet not neither one of y'all leave this watchtower until the king give the baby to the right person. Natalia said, what? Summer said, don't worry about it, girl. By the way, I'm Summer. That's my best friend. And you see them Everglades out there? I'll kill you, leave your body in it. Let the crocodiles eat you and help your family look for you if you play in that man's face. It's nice to meet you though. Saint, if this all works out, bring her by the house. Nana would love to meet her. And then she and Star got gone. When they left, Natalia looked at Saint and said, please tell me that you don't got a baby or a baby on the way too. Saint said, he told you? Natalia said, no, she did. Saint said, he's got to be losing his mind right now. Natalia said, and you still worried about him? The problem is, he wasn't at all worried about you. Saint said, nobody ever taught him to worry about me. I'm also worried about you. Are you okay? Natalia said, if you were so worried about me, why'd you leave? Saint said, because I can't be the reason why. You end up in some tug of war. I can't participate in something that's going to result in you being torn apart. Natalia asked, why? Saint said, because you deserve better than that. Every woman deserves better than that. Natalia said, that's so nice of you. Saint said, I'm not trying to be nice, but I live my life trying to be kind. I'm a killer, Natalia. I find people for a living. I either rescue them from situations they shouldn't be in or put them in situations they don't want to be in. But in my personal life, I'm a protector. Natalia said, I see that. But who are you really protecting right now? Sincere, me, or yourself? Are you on this mountain right now because you intended to never see me again? I mean, you blocked me, so Saint said, I ain't block you. I disconnected the whole phone. When I walk away, I walk away. Natalia said, so basically I should go? Saint asked, why you here, Tori? I mean, Natalia. Natalia chuckled and said, I'm here because I need to know what you would have wanted if Tori and Natalia weren't the same person. Saint asked, and if I answer that, if I say something that makes that crease in the corner of your eye crinkle up, something that makes you have that little one-sided smile when you're happy, am I going to make it hard for you to go back and have something with Sincere? Natalia said, I ended things with Sincere before I came here. Saint said, I hope you didn't do that for me. Natalia said, no, I did it for me. Saint said, was it because? Natalia said, stop asking me about him. I'm asking you about you. I'm here because I'm willing to hear you out. But I'm perfectly okay with walking away from both of you. I'm not trying to do the ricochet rabbit. Your stepmother seems to be fond of tennis analogies. Well, I don't want to be the ball girl. You and your brother not knocking a ball across the net, and I'm not going to run around collecting the damn balls. Saint said, I don't even get that analogy. Natalia said, me either. I tried. And they both dissolved into laughter. Saint said, I don't want you in the middle of the lifelong competition that a ghost started. My father thought that the best way to teach his sons to be men was to pit us against one another and let the best man win. I refused to participate, and Sincere always thought he was winning. He always assumed that he got what he wanted because he wanted it more than I did. He thought that I was scared to compete with him, that he was taking things from me, and I didn't have what it took to fight him for it and get it. And I let him believe that because he needed to feel good about himself. I've never wanted anything he had. He's always wanted everything that I had, and I ain't never wanted nothing bad enough to prove him wrong. Natalia said, thanks for letting me know. You take care. When she turned to walk away, Saint said, I won't stop you from leaving. But if you do, you're going to take what's left of my heart with you. Natalia turned around saying, what kind of game you playing, Art? Saint said, it's not a game, I promise. You're not the first woman that I walked away from in an effort to keep this mess between me and my brother from destroying her. The only thing that I regret is when I had the chance to love the one woman who I knew loved me. I let her walk away without telling her how I really felt. I was today years old when I realized that she deserved to know. So I'm not going to try to stop you from leaving. I just think you deserve to know. Natalia said, and what if I don't want to leave? Saint said, that's not good enough. Natalia said, what you mean? Saint said, you can't stay because you don't want to leave. You stay, it got to be because you want to stay. It can't be because you don't want my brother It can't be because you don't want to be alone. Natalia said, I'm in love with you, Art. I don't even know how we do this. I have to stay at your family's estate until all of this mess is over. Your brother's there and he got a whole lot of mess on his hands. But I'm sure he's still not going to make it easy. I've already told him where I stand. And when I make decisions, I stand on them. I'm not flighty, wishy-washy. My loyalties are never divided. And if I let a man in, he is the only one who can decide based on his own behavior whether he stays or goes. I'm a rider. I love hard and well. I want to love you, Art. Saint said, well, if you gonna love me, you gotta know me. The people who give me assignments in the 5 families call me 17. That's my finisher number. The people who I meet and don't have personal relationships with call me Art. But the people who love me and know me well call me Saint. So you know, I'm in love with you too. And I want nothing more than to know and love you. Natalia said, well, the people who know and love me call me Natty. Saint said, I ain't Natty. Can I kiss you? And Natalia closed the distance. Several weeks later, Q was chillaxing at home with his wife and their brand new twins. 4 of their children were at the main house with the grandmother crew, minus Miss Bernie. Her understated funeral had been held in Moline and the entire family was grieving. When Q got a phone call from the front gate, he was perplexed and annoyed. And when he opened his front door, after giving the visitor entry, he said, what the hell you doing here, Bosch? Bosch said, I'm sorry to just show up, but I need to see that man. Q said, what man? Bosch said, come on, man. Manny told me, and I can't move on without having a conversation with him. Q said, well, that's not gonna happen, because for all intents and purposes, that man is dead. Whatever you had with his woman is over, and as I understand, you should be in New York. Bosch said, I took a leave of absence because I got some unfinished business. Q said, so what you gonna do? Walk in and tell that man you been smashing his woman? Bosch said, I wouldn't have been smashing his woman if I knew he was alive. She wouldn't have let me smash if she knew he was alive. Q said, nigga, lower your voice and fix your skirt. Your slip is showing. Then he turned away from the door so that Bosch could come in. He led Bosch to the study and said, you gotta be one of the dumbest niggas I know. What the hell would possess you to show up here demanding to have a conversation with a man who nobody even knows is alive? Bosch said, because I made that man a promise, and I need that man to know what kind of man I am. Q said, I think he knows. You the kind of man that would move in on another nigga's girl if... Bosch said, you mean to tell me that if you were dead? Q said, if I was dead, I would want my wife to do what Claire told Cliff to do in the Cosby Show. Hang a poster-sized picture of me over her damn bed, so any nigga who even thought about it would have to look me in my eyes. I'd expect my woman to be focused on raising our kids, but you should be glad that Wood ain't me. He didn't expect loyalty in the afterlife. I would, and I don't give a damn how that sound. Bosch said, that's just it. She wasn't disloyal. That's another reason why I need to see that man. She need him. And Q said, you don't think he know that? You don't think he had a good reason for letting the woman that he loves, the woman pregnant with his child, believe he was dead? Nigga, you not bigger than the program. Get the hell out of here. Go to New York and do your job. Bosch said, I can't do that without at least trying to make things right. Q said, for what? For who? For you or for True? I have it on good authority that man ain't holding no grudges. Bosch said, if that's true, why not give him the opportunity to decide for himself if he want to sit down with me? Angela walked in the room and said, if you died, I would hang a poster-sized photo of you on the wall in our master bedroom. But I'd also be inconsolable, and somebody would have to peel me up off the floor. I don't know what the hell was going on in Denver, but I know that True has not been right since I had to make that phone call. And if this man can say anything that will make it easier for True to face Wood when it's time, then you shouldn't deny him that opportunity. Now, if Big Wood don't want to talk to him, he can say that. When Big Wood hung up the phone, Melissa said, I told you he was coming, Uncle Wood. You know I'm always right, and you know I'm right about this too. Melissa had been checking on her Uncle Wood even more since Miss Charlotte had left Texas. In the time that had passed since season 15 ended, Big Wood had made great strides in his recovery. He was walking on his own with the aid of a cane and even saying more words audibly. When Melissa wasn't with him, Q or Angela were. And Angela had been working hard to prepare Wood for the uphill battle that would be his reunion with True. She knew that True would be glad that Big Wood was alive, but she would be pissed that he let her believe he was dead. And for all her bluster, she'd be kicking herself for having another man in her bed so soon after Big Wood's death. And Big Wood would have to be in the presence of mind to let bygones be bygones. So while that was not the topic of their conversations, she was an experienced certified life coach, and she knew exactly what to say and what assignments to give to prepare Big Wood for that day. And Melissa, who was only 15 years old, had no clue about what went on between True and Bosch and all the ins and outs of all of that. But her spiritual gift had given her some insight, and she'd used it to be Scottie Pippen to her mother's Michael Jordan. Not even 5 minutes before Q called Big Wood, Melissa had told him that somebody was coming to visit, and he needed to sit down and talk to them, whether that's what he wanted to do or not. And when Q called and told him that Bosch wanted to see him, Big Wood said, "Tell that nigga to go fly a damn kite." Big Wood had aphasia, and while he'd been stringing together more words to make sentences, as of late, he was still using ASL and a tablet that he would type in and it would say the words out loud. He was so pissed off, though, that Bosch would have the unmitigated gall to show up in his backyard that he didn't need the damn tablet. He struggled and got them words out. And hearing Melissa's admonition, he thought better of it. He picked up his phone, called Q and said, "Give me 15 and send." And Q said, "All right, bro." When Bosch showed up at the front door of Big Wood's mother, Miss Charlotte, and his stepfather, Samuel's guest house, Melissa opened it. She said, "Mister, make sure you stay at least 4 feet away from my uncle." Big Wood had positioned himself on the couch in the living room of the guest house. Right next to him was his 3.5-foot cane. Melissa left the two men alone and headed to Mom Brenda, where she planned to pray for Bosch's safety. And Bosch headed into the living room, where he came face to face with the man whose woman he'd been sleeping with. Before Big Wood could say a word, Bosch said, "Listen, I know you probably heard some things, but I need you to understand that my intentions were to take care of your woman and your unborn baby the same way you took care of mine, just until you returned. And like we talked about, I was going to be there for the long haul if you never came back. When you didn't come back, that was my only focus. She still loves you. She needs you." Wood said, "I know that. Get to the point." Bosch didn't even notice that Big Wood's speech was labored. He thought the man was so angry that he was struggling to maintain his composure. And that was the reason why his words was a little spaced apart. And that was why he let him talk without interruption until that point. Bosch said, "The point is, I'm not going to be a problem as long as you don't plan to give her a problem." Big Wood just looked at him. And after a few seconds, he said, "Walk away." Bosch said, "If you plan on staying here and staying in hiding, I'm going back. I just will keep my hands to myself." Wood said, "Walk away or die." And then the door came open and Q walked in. He looked at Big Wood and said, "You done talking to this nigga?" When Big Wood nodded his head, Q said, "Listen, and listen good. Your job is done. You said what you came to say. You still alive, but you won't be if you go back to Denver." Bosch said, "I just don't want her to be alone." Wood said, "She's not." In Denver, True was crying on Miss Charlotte's shoulder. Several days earlier, she got a knock on the door. And like Maribel had told her during their last visit, she got a visitor. If you were hoping that it would be Big Wood, this ain't no soap opera. That man was not well enough to show up in Denver. And on this particular day, True was crying because Maribel had come for her 36-week appointment, assessed True, and decided she needed to be hospitalized for the duration of her pregnancy, however long that would be. And it looked like her nightmare was about to come true. While she'd stopped having the reoccurring nightmares that either Big Wood would show up and find her in the bed with Bosch, or she'd go into labor and Bosch would be the one standing by her side, but she would still feel all alone. she started having a new nightmare. In that nightmare, she was raising Genesis alone. She and him were in Bali, living in the house on the land that he purchased her when he proposed. No family, no friends, and a young Genesis had come home from school and asked why everybody else had a daddy but him. You missed